Let's see. Good evening. Welcome to the November 15th meeting of the Niskayuna Zoning Board of Appeals. Ms. Shickety, will you go ahead and call the roll, please?
Here.
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 Here. Here. The first matter on the agenda is a review of the October 18th minutes. Is there any discussion of those minutes?
Mr. Chairman, just a correction in English, line 281. It could be either office would have considered or office would consider. Just a grammar correction.
Okay, any objections to that modification? Having heard none, are there any motions? Is there any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure. Is Mr. Dolman, he was here, right? I think
was.
he was marked absent, maybe, if you could check it.
He's marked as arrived late.
Oh, okay.
So
That
in
is
the
accurate.
so in the vote for the minutes, he was not present, but for the rest of the meeting, he's there.
Okay.
We still have 4 votes, irrespective of his vote, because he wasn't here for the first matter in terms of approving the minutes. But in any event, is there any further discussion on the minutes? Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
Motion.
Amending the line. Mr. Latif has made a motion to approve. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Ms. Shickety, will you go ahead and call the roll, please?
Mr. Latif?
Yes.
Mr. Dolman?
Yes.
Ms. Pacheco?
Yes.
Mr. Daly? Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Antonikowski?
Yes.
Chairperson Hoag?
Yes, and the minutes are approved by a 5-0 vote. Will you go ahead and call the first matter, please?
Appeal by Stephen and Katie McCutcheon for a variance from Section 220-53B and Section 220-13 Schedule IC of the zoning ordinance of the town of Niskayuna as it applies to the property at 1461 Clifton Park Road, Niskayuna, New York, located in the R2 Medium Density Residential Zoning District, to construct a 13-foot by 19-foot 5-inch deck partially within the side yard setback. Section 220-53B allows an addition to a non-conforming residential structure, which brings the addition into a non-conforming side or rear yard no nearer to the side or rear yard than the existing structure and no nearer than half the distance specified in a particular residential zoning district. Section 220-13 Schedule IC requires a side yard setback of 15 feet. The existing house is 6 foot 6 inches from the side yard. Therefore, 7 foot 6 inches becomes the minimum required side setback. As proposed, the deck will be 6 feet 6 inches from the side property line. Therefore, a 1 foot side yard setback variance is required. 16 notices were mailed, 2 responses.
Can the applicant please come forward?
Oh wait. 2 responses.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
The applicant can still come forward.
The first letter is from William Chapman and Jerry A. Heller. To the dear board members and the Niskayuna ZBA, we are the owners and reside at 1465 Clifton Park Road, Niskayuna, New York. Our neighbors to the south, Steve and Kate McCutcheon, own the property at 1461 Clifton Park Road, which is immediately adjacent to our lot. We have learned that Mr. and Mrs. McCutcheon have applied to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a 1 foot
Side?
maybe yard setback variance that will allow them to go forward with construction of a deck on the back of their home. As owners of the adjacent lot just north of 1461 Clifton Park Road, we have no objection to this variance request. Please contact us if you have any questions or need additional information. Thank you. William Chapman and Jerry Heller. Second letter regarding the variance request for a new deck at 1461 Clifton Park Road. To whom it may concern, I am writing in support of Stephen and Katie McCutcheon's appeal for a variance in relation to constructing a new deck at 1461 Clifton Park Road. We are their immediate neighbors to the south at 1457 Clifton Park Road and own the property on the other side of the property line in question for this variance. We have no objection with Steve and Katie's construction plans and fully advocate for their appeal to be approved. We look forward to their project and as neighbors will benefit from their planned improvements. Please contact us with any additional questions or concerns. Sincerely, John and Liz Bridge, 1457 Clifton Park Road.
The applicant, please come forward. If you don't mind, can you tell us your name and address for the record?
Yes, good evening, Chairman Hoke and members of the zoning board. My name is Steve McCutcheon. I live at 1461 Clifton Park Road in Niskuna, and I'm here to apply for the 1-foot variance, as you heard.
Talk into the mic.
Oh, sorry, Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. McCutcheon, before
Yes.
you start, I just had a question for you. You had previously been before the board for a variance, correct?
That is correct, Chairman.
And if you could just refresh my recollection, what was that variance for?
It was for pretty much the exact same variance that we're looking for now. It was for a 1-foot variance if you're looking from the street from to the left side.
And Laura, what was the result of that variance application for?
That was approved, Chairman.
Okay. So I guess the question becomes, why are we back before the board?
We are back before the board because we sort of had some extra funds and we wanted to include a deck, which is an extension pretty much of the exact addition that we are currently constructing.
So you got approved for the addition of the deck, and now we're going to,
No, we gotta approve.
I'm sorry, for the addition.
Yes,
So the variance was for the addition, which was approved for the 1 foot.
yes,
Now, because you have additional funds, you're going to be building a deck behind that with the same dimensions, which would also require the 1 foot variance.
that is correct, Chairman.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to tell us about your application?
I think it was pretty, other than sort of what was read into the record already, there is not too much else to say other than our neighbors that are adjacent that gave us a supporting letter. The Bridges, they also had to apply for a 1 foot variance on recent construction at their home, which was also approved. So we're pretty much in line with the variance that they had on their side.
Okay, I'm going to open it up for other questions from other board members.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
very quickly, can you just tell me exactly what it is you're hoping to gain as a benefit from putting on this deck?
We are hoping to gain just some additional family living space. The home was, we're growing as a family and we're looking to expand on obviously the addition that the board granted us, and adding the deck would further that enjoyment of, our home.
Okay. Is it possible for you to locate that deck anywhere that wouldn't require this variance?
No, it's not.
Can you tell me why?
Well, if you're looking at our house from the street on the right side, our properties between myself and the Chapmans are split by a driveway. So we have no room on that side to have the deck, basically, because we probably run into the same variance issue on that side.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I have a
Yes.
few questions for the applicant.
Sure.
Mr. McCutcheon, is there a door that comes from the addition onto the deck, and where is that located?
Yes, it would be a screen door, and I did submit a picture, but if you don't mind, I can kind of.
If you step away from there, please use the microphone.
Loud tonight, so you might get some feedback.
Our screen door would be sort of right here in the middle of where the deck is.
Okay,
From
so,
this is the new addition part, and it would the sliding glass door would be right here.
Okay, so making the deck shorter, pulling it away from the side and making it 1 foot less and negating the need for a variance, how would that affect you negatively?
Well, I think it just cut, right now, if we were to do that, I think it would cut away from the design of the full project. By having it here, you get if you're coming down Clifton Park, from Van Antwerp School, you can see that side of the property. And I think having it in would take away from sort of the appearance of the house from the street that, other community members might see as they drive past the house.
And what's the nature of the deck edge? And I have a follow-up question to that, but what's the nature of the construction of the deck? Is it going to have a solid side to it or guardrail on the edge?
No, it's low enough to the ground where side rails are not going to be needed. And we chose this material because sort of with the Northeast, with the winters, you have the cement and that it can crack, and similar issues if you run into, the pavers. And we've chose to go with the decking, and that material is a little bit more sustainable, can hold to the weather here in the Northeast. And, we enjoy the deck for a long period of time and not have to come back and fix things.
So it's on the application, I see a diagram showing the construction of it with the pressure treated wood. What is the deck that's on top there?
The deck is going to be, it's the Trex decking.
And you said there's nothing along the edge, it's completely open?
No, it's not. We wouldn't, because of the height of the deck, which is only one step, we're not required to have railings around the edges.
So it's very low?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and what can your neighbors see who are next door to either side? What can they see of that deck? Is it
Our
fully open?
neighbors to the left probably won't see anything because they have a solid wood fence that separates the two properties. And we would probably be looking at doing something. We already had a fence on our property and we have a dog, so we would probably put the fence that was there back up so our neighbors to the right would not see the deck very much either.
And is the neighbor's fence to the left, is that a 6-foot fence? Do you know?
I am not sure.
Is it tall enough that when you're standing?
I can't see over it when I'm standing on the ground. So it might be 8 foot. I'm not sure.
And how far forward does that fence come along the side between you?
It comes, sorry. It comes, their property, this is our addition, so their fence comes right up to here. So it's already up to the, the side of past where our deck is going to be and where our current addition already is.
Okay, and hopefully one last question. I
Sure.
think on the approval that was given for the addition, when you were here last, is there going to be a gutter on the edge of that low slope roof?
That is still in the planning phases as far as where the drainage might go for that. We're working with our general contractor as far as how we might do that. I'm hoping that what's been discussed is going to be drained into the back of our yard.
Okay, so you wouldn't say that it would be draining towards the neighbor on the left, correct?
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I went over, had found time to go over to that property, and I saw that there was no adverse effect to the neighborhood. The gentleman to the right was there, and he asked me what I was doing. I told him I'm with zoning board of appeals, and he says, they want to put a deck on. I said, yeah, that's what I'm looking at. And I don't see where it'd be adverse to the property or the neighborhood. And I think it'd make the neighborhood a little bit better.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. Is there any other questions?
Hi,
Good evening, Mr. Green.
how are you, sir?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. Without in any way ever constraining your right to ever come back, should it be necessary, since you're here and this is the second time I've seen you, inquiring minds, or at least my mind, would want to know, is this the extent of the project that you anticipate?
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions from any other members of the board? Okay. Are there any, is there anybody from the audience or community that wishes to be heard on this application? Having heard none, is there anyone who would like to make a motion relative to this application?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. We accept the applicant from what I saw and from what we talked about it on the board. As I said again, there's no adverse to the neighborhood. I think it's going to improve the neighborhood. And that's the way I
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Mr. Daly's made a motion to approve the application. Is there a second to his motion?
Second.
Okay, motion has been made by Mr. Daly and seconded by Mr. Dolman. Is there any discussion on that motion? Okay, go ahead and call the roll, Mrs. Shea.
Mr. Latif?
I'm going to say yes on the motion, and just to go over a couple things. As the applicant said, that this benefit cannot be achieved by other means, so this is the only way he can have it fit in the backyard. And whether the request is substantial, this is a non-conforming property, so I'm going to say it is substantial. But again, it looks like that's the only option they can do, and the applicant seems to have looked into all the other options to provide as gutters and water issues and so on. So whether the request will have adverse physical or environment, it's not going to have any problem, any issues. The neighbors seem to be all good on having the applicant do this. So for all the reasons stated before and my reason, I'm voting yes.
Mr. Dolman?
I'm going to vote yes, because the benefit can not be achieved by other means for reasons stated by the applicant. This is not an undesirable change in the neighborhood. I've biked by your home many times with my son. Very familiar with the neighborhood. This shouldn't be a problem. I would say that this is a substantial request, but there are mitigating factors to that. I don't see any reason to believe there's an adverse environmental impact. And while this was self-created, that is not determinative. And on the balance, I vote yes.
Ms. Pacheco?
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Mr. Daly?
yes, for the reasons stated.
Mr. Green?
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Mr. Antonikowski?
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Chairperson Hoke?
Yes, for the reasons stated, your application's been approved by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, board.
Have a good one. Mr. Kenny, we call the next matter.
The appeal of Bradley and Lisa Bodmer for a variance from section 220-4 and section 220-18A2 of the zoning ordinance of the town of Niskuna as it applies to the property at 200 Brittany Place, Niskuna, New York, located in the R1 Low Density Residential Zoning District, to maintain an 80-square-foot shed in the front yard. Section 220-4 states for corner lots, each street line shall be considered a front line. The property is a corner lot and as defined has front yards along Brittany Place and Fox Hollow Road. Front yard, section 220-18A states that accessory structures are not permitted in the front yard of any lot. The zoning ordinance defines front yard as a yard situated between the main building and the front line of the lot and extending the full width of the lot. As constructed, the shed is located between the house and Fox Hollow Road in what constitutes a front yard. Therefore, a variance from this section is required. 10 notices were mailed out, 0 responses.
Will the applicant please come forward? If you don't mind stating your name and address for the record, please.
Bradley Bodmer, 200 Brittany Place, Niskayuna, New York, 12309.
Mr. Bodmer?
Bodmer, right?
If my understanding is correct, this has been at its location for 20 years. And when I say it, I'm talking about the shed, and at its location, I believe it is on the diagram that's been put up. It's the X, correct?
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And do you know how this matter came before the board?
No.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I filed the appeal.
I understand. Very, very good. Very, very good response. That's how it came before the board. Actually, you're right.
We
I should be a
had,
little bit more precise with my language. Did we have any complaints?
no, we had an applicant a couple cases ago who was sending us pictures of sheds in the front yard. And this was one of the pictures that they sent, and we couldn't find a building permit for it, so we had to follow up. But
Okay.
no complaints. It just came from a different case, using as an example.
Okay, you were an example from a different case.
That makes sense.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about, to the best of your understanding, of why the shed is where it is on the property, what you use this shed for, and if there's any other alternate locations on your property that you could place this shed that wouldn't require a variance.
So when we moved into this house, we've been living in Niskayuna for 30 years. We moved into this house 20 years ago. It's very wet in the backyard. This was a kind of a higher dry spot. We were ignorant as to the rules, which I know is not an excuse. So we picked this spot after talking to our neighbor that lives right behind that shed. They were fine with it. Actually, they have a shed that backs up to ours, although there's, I think, is within, the requirements. So we just picked it because it was a higher dry spot. The backyard's all wet. Now, since then, we've planted a row of arborvitaes along, as you look at that now, the left-hand edge of that shed. And just trees and everything growing naturally have kind of hidden the shed from most of the view of either street that goes, the front of us or the side of us.
So from Fox Hollow Road, can you see the shed?
Yeah, you can see it, but you got to get almost all the way to Brittany Place before you can see it, because there's just trees hiding it.
Okay. And the neighbor that you indicated didn't have an issue with this shed. Is that still your neighbor?
He's still, yeah, they're still our neighbors, yes.
Okay. And you said that there's a row of arborvitaes. Are the arborvitaes behind the shed?
No, they're actually, they're on the left side of the shed. So they run, right where you're pointing, whoever's pointing is, I don't know if you were trying to do that, but you were pointing where the arborvitaes are. They run right here.
Okay. So you've described where the arborvitaes are. Are there any, what do you use the shed for currently?
Oh, lawnmower, yard equipment, rakes, that kind of things.
And what is the foundation? How's the shed set up? What's it set on?
It's crushed gravel and not cinder blocks, but maybe about a 2-inch solid blocks on each corner.
And have you investigated the potential of moving the shed?
We haven't, but if I had to move it, I pretty much have to take those arborvitaes down, or some of them, in order to move it back in compliance. I would also have to take out the sprinkler system that's there, because where I would put it, where it would be in compliance, I would have to just remanage the sprinkler systems there.
Okay. Does anybody else on the board have any questions?
If I may.
Mr. Green?
How you doing, sir? Richard Green.
Hi, sir.
Okay, if you stand on Brittany Place, would you be facing the front of your house?
But yes, sir.
Great. And the driveway's on the right-hand side?
Correct.
Okay, so if you're standing on Brittany Place where your driveway begins, approximately how many feet is it to where the shed is currently located? Ballpark.
100 feet, maybe more, 120, maybe.
All right, and say you're traveling on Fox Hollow Road, and your attention is drawn toward your residence. How many feet is it from the closest travel lane on Fox Hollow Road to where your shed is currently located?
That's probably about 75 feet.
Right, and there's some trees in between?
Yeah, there's, where all those dots are actually, there's trees. Those are, I'd have to ask my wife what they're called, but they're evergreens.
So even in the wintertime, your evergreens are going to keep their leaves, and the view doesn't get any better for someone who, for whatever reason, would be fascinated to be looking at your shed while traveling on
Correct,
Fox Hollow Road.
correct,
Thank
correct.
you. I have no further questions.
Does anybody else on the board have any questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chair. This is actually more of a question for you and for the town planner. This shed has been in place for 20 years. Has there been a zoning? I believe we've rezoned in that time, have we? No? Okay.
1978, 71.
Oh. By rezoned, I mean that there may have been changes. No? Okay, not in that part of the code. Thank you. That's all.
Are there any other questions or clarifications that are requested?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just another question about the shed itself. What's the nature of its construction?
It's stick construction, 2x4 construction, and then the exterior matches the house. It's a vinyl, yellow vinyl, same as we have on the house.
Okay, and you mentioned that it was sitting on on the four corners on some kind of masonry. Would it be able to be lifted up without
Yes.
falling apart? I guess is the question.
I'm going to guess yes. Oh, no.
Ma'am, if you want to speak, you're going to have to come up to the
Yeah,
mic. Just
she
so we
said
can
not by a
hear you.
person, but I don't think she meant it that way.
No, you are correct. I was meaning by perhaps a forklift or some other mechanical means.
Yeah.
But I know that you mentioned you have the row of arborvitaes that are essentially in the same plane as where your garage doors are.
Yep.
What's the gap between your house and where those arborvitaes start?
Probably about 3-4 feet from the back edge of the garage to the first arborvitae.
So it's very narrow there. You would not be able to move that
Oh, no.
through there.
No, ma'am.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Having heard none, is there anybody in the audience that wishes to be heard for or against this application? Having heard no members of the community that wish to be heard, is there anybody that would like to make a motion on this application?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Green.
may I please make a motion?
Oh, you're welcome to, sir.
Thank you. I would move that the application be granted. It's been there 20 years. There's no objections from the neighbors. You really got to be looking to see it if you're on Fox Hollow. You really got to be looking to see it if you're on Brittany Place. To move it, you have to cut down arborvitae, something that in appropriate circumstances, this board has actually encouraged people to consider. And the delay of the land being that a portion of the property is perhaps more unsuitable for a shed, given all those factors, and the fact that it would appear that the benefit could not be achieved by any other feasible means. There is no undesirable change in the neighborhood. It's a substantial request. However, given all the other factors, including the absence of adverse physical or environmental effects, I would move that the application be granted.
A motion has been made. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Mr. Dolman seconded Mr. Green's motion. Is there any discussion on that motion?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, just a question, I guess, to my fellow board members. The application is about maintaining this in the front yard, correct?
That is correct. That's the variance that's being sought, yes.
And it does not, at the moment, it is not restricted to its exact location in the front yard. Is that correct?
Well, that's a question.
I
Yeah,
guess.
no, because Elena and I have had this conversation before, but the variance is for the shed in its current location. It's not a blanket variance to move the shed anywhere on the yard.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That helps clear it up. Thank you.
Is there any other further discussion on the motion? Having heard none, Mr. Kenny, will you call the roll?
Mr. Lataif,
This is a tough one for me because it is gonna cause some problem for future applicants to come in front of the board and use your shed to apply for another one. So I'm gonna vote no. That's the only reason, because I don't want to set precedent for future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lataif.
Mr. Dolman,
I'm going to vote yes for the reasons stated, but I do want to, to follow on to the concerns of my fellow board member. I do want to note that this is absolutely a substantial request, but there are other mitigating factors which have already been stated, which would cause me on the balance to vote yes.
Ms. Pacheco,
I will also vote yes. Again, likewise with my fellow board member, that it's a difficult decision to make as it is a front yard and very unlike the board in past and can set a precedent, but because it is a small shed in nature and is placed very close to what is the side yard of your neighbor, on the back side of your house on Fox Hollow Road. I do not see that it can be achieved by other means feasible to you. It's been there for a long time, so it's not an undesirable change. Again, it's substantial, but it will not have any adverse physical or environmental effects from sitting there. For those reasons, I say vote yes.
Mr. Daly,
Yes, for all the reasons stated.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Antonikowski,
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Chairperson Hoke.
I will vote yes as well. I will note that I agree that having a shed in the front yard, this board has historically found that to be a substantial request. I'll also indicate that each property is unique. That's why you come before the board for a variance and exceptions to the general rules. I don't find that the factors here create any kind of general recognition that we are more amenable to sheds in the front yard after this application. I would say that the property itself has unique features that are or have resulted partially based upon circumstances that the shed has been in place for 20 years and that the property has grown up around the shed. There's significant vegetation that impairs the ability to just move the shed wherever like you would on a less treed lot. So based upon the uniqueness of this property, I am voting yes, but I agree with my colleagues that have indicated that this is a substantial request. So your application is approved by a vote of 6-1.
Yeah, thank you for your time and consideration.
Take care. Mr. Kenny, we call the next matter, please.
Appeal by Sarah and Justin English for a variance from Section 220-18B2 of the zoning ordinance of the town of Niskuna as it applies to the property at 537 Fillmore Ave, Niskuna, New York, located in the R2 Medium Density Residential Zoning District, to maintain a hot tub and a shed which exceed the number of allowable accessory structures on the property. Section 220-18B2 states that there shall not be more than 3 accessory structures on a lot. As constructed, there are 5 accessory structures: a pool, a fence, a garage, a hot tub, and a shed. Therefore, a variance for 2 additional accessory structures is required. 5 notices were mailed, 1 response.
To the Town of Niskuna Zoning Board of Appeals regarding the zoning appeal for 537 Fillmore Ave. I have no objection to the zoning appeal by Sarah and Justin English for 537 Fillmore Ave to include 5 items in their backyard. Thank you. Sheila Walsh, owner, 541 Fillmore Ave.
Will the applicant please come forward? the applicant present this evening? Okay. Okay, so this is something that happens before the board on a fairly, well, it's not, I wouldn't say it's frequent, but it does happen. We have an obligation to look at the application as it's before us, and we can't make any assumptions or take a negative inference from the fact that the applicant isn't here. However, to the extent that we are unable to procure information that may mitigate in favor of approving the application, that can be an issue that can be considered. So is there any discussion on the application as it's been written?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
may I believe that in other cases, we have tabled and given the applicant an opportunity to show up. Like circumstances happen, I don't think that we need unlimited opportunities for them to show up, but I'm of a one strike
Okay.
mood on this one.
So can I weigh in? Usually what happens is there's a discussion on the application itself. And then if the board feels as though they need additional information in order to make a decision, then we usually do adjourn it for one meeting to see if the applicant shows. If the applicant doesn't show, then you move forward with the information that you have. But if you feel as though that you have sufficient information in the packet and that there's not anything additional that the applicant could provide if the applicant were here, then you can move forward on the application itself without adjourning.
Okay, generally speaking, what I want to hear relative to these applications is the purpose for each accessory structure. And I'm also typically interested in finding out what the condition of each accessory structure is on the property. Based upon the information that's in the packet, I cannot deduce that. Also, with respect to these applications in the past, there's generally a more complete and thorough architectural or landscaping plans that are included in the packet. In this case, none of those items appears to be included. So it does appear that there's information that I would request of the typical applicant that isn't here. I don't know what other people's feelings are on that.
Mr. Chairman, the only question I have is for Laura is, all these 5 variants, are they meet the code? Any issue is where they are placed and so on? Because
They all meet setback and rear and side yard requirements.
it is.
So it's just a number variance.
So just a number.
It's actually a pretty big lot.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
and the only reason I ask, because in the past, as long they didn't meet setback and so on, I feel like it's okay to make a vote on it as long everything fits into the zoning.
Well, I mean, I recognize what you're saying, that we generally have, to my recollection, we've generally approved these types of applications at the end of the day. I do agree with that. I am always concerned with respect to approving a number of accessory structures on a parcel of property in which the accessory structures are in a condition that they probably should be removed. So in other words, I don't want to approve accessory structures where the condition of as an accessory structure is become decrepit. And I can't determine from this application whether that's the case. That would be my concern.
If I may respond to that as well, the application does state that the shed and the hot tub are in good condition, but what it neglects to say is how old they are. They started to write in a number for how many years, the hot, under number 1, it says the hot tub has been on the property for years, but we don't know how many. The structure under number 2 was in the property was purchased in, they don't fill out that either. So we don't know how long any of this has been in place. So I agree with the concern. It's hard to tell what that answer is, but what I do want to note is looking at where the property is located. I believe across the street and behind this property are either park or nature preserve areas, so they do not have backyard neighbors or across the street neighbors. It does seem from the street side that they've got adequate fencing, et cetera, but again, that's not determinative. I just wanted to mention what I noticed.
Is there any other discussion?
I
Yes.
just
I'd
want
like to know,
Oh.
Freddie, was there any contact by the applicant?
So Linda called her and she left a message in our office today that she was going to attend. I just tried the cell phone number in the application and went to a voicemail. But I did want to amend what I said to Mr. Lataif. I actually think the garage may be too close to the lot line, but I think the garage is like the same age of the house, so it's pre-existing non-conforming. And even though the garage is included in the accessory structures, the ones that we were really looking at were the hot tub, shed, and pool. But I think the garage is probably too close to the lot line, would be my guess.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, why don't we do this? Why don't, is there any other discussion? Why don't we make, why don't we first entertain motions to table? In the event that there's no motion to table, then we'll go on to a motion on the
So moved,
application.
Mr. Chair.
Okay. So, Mr. Dolman's made a motion to table, correct? Is there a second to that?
I'll second to that.
Okay. Mr. Kenny, we call the roll on that motion to table.
Mr. Lataif?
Yes.
Mr. Dolman?
Yes.
Ms. Pacheco?
Yes,
Mr. Daly?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Antonakowski?
Yes.
Chairperson Hoke?
Yes, the motion to table is passed by 7-0 vote, so that'll be on the next meeting for the one bite at the apple. Mr. Kenny, will you call the next matter, please?
The appeal of Lawrence Pulaski for a variance from section 220-25B1A of the zoning ordinance of the town of Niskuna as it applies to the property at 887 Morgan Ave, Niskuna, New York, located in the R1 low-density residential zoning district, to install a 6-foot high fence exceeding the height limit in the side yard. The property is a corner lot. As defined, it has front yards along Morgan Ave and Village Road. Fence section 220-25B1A permits the maximum height for fences located in the front and side yards to be 4 feet. As proposed, a 6-foot high fence will be located in the side yard. Therefore, a 2-foot fence height variance is required. 10 notices were mailed, 0 responses.
Will the applicant please come forward? You can state your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, Lawrence or Larry Pulaski, 887 Morgan Avenue, Niskuna.
Okay, Mr. Pulaski, can we pull up the drawing of the property? Mr. Pulaski, can you grab that microphone there? So I'm going to ask you to, just so we're all on the same page here. So that is your property, correct, sir?
That is correct.
Okay, why don't you just go and, so we're all on the same page, where you're proposing to place the fence, the 6-foot fence.
Okay, the area in question is this 30-foot section.
Okay.
And that's defined as the side yard as per the town's requirements.
And where exactly is the fence going to be located within that?
The fence is going to be on the property line.
Okay.
So from start to finish, so to speak. So here I'm allowed 6 foot by code. Here's going to be 4 feet, and this is the 30 feet in question that I'm seeking the variance on.
And why can't that be 4 feet?
It's a question of privacy. I mean, I'm installing this for a privacy fence. as you come down Village, this lot to the west has just been cleared. This is wide open. Also, as you come down Village, there is a topographical difference. We're sitting at a much lower point. So in order to gain maximum privacy, that's why we're requesting the 6 foot in that area.
And there has never been a fence in that location prior to this? And how long have you owned this property?
Over 20 years.
Okay, so if I'm just reading between the lines, the lot next to you is clear. They're going to be building a house there, presumably? Okay, and so that is the basis for the need for the fence at this time, from your perspective?
Correct.
Are there other, well, just let me ask you, has there been anybody in the community or neighborhood who has discussed your plans for a fence in that location with you?
My immediate neighbors have come.
Okay, and where are they located? Okay, and besides them, have you spoken with anybody else?
People out walking the dog, just chit chat talk,
Okay.
but nobody's in opposition to my knowledge.
Okay, nobody brought to your knowledge any opposition to the plan. Okay, are there other members on the board that have questions?
Yes, hi, Richard Green. You may step out of the spotlight.
I'm not used to being in the spotlight.
I ready. I had the privilege of doing a site inspection, and actually, we didn't talk, but I saw someone working very diligently in their yard, right? Yeah, yeah, I know. I'm like, hey, what's the guy doing there with the baseball cap, right? Yeah. So what's going on? Ready? Is there a for sale sign to sell the lot that's adjacent to your lot?
There is, yeah.
Is the expectation that the lot will be purchased and will be developed? In other words, the thought being there's going to be a home, a residence sitting in that currently undeveloped lot?
That is the expectation, yeah.
Right. So what's going on is you're going to have neighbors, right? That's what everyone's thinking. And the elevation of your property in relation to the adjacent undeveloped lot, you're substantially lower, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, I'm just asking, all right? I'm just asking, have you given any thought to, instead of asking for a variance for 30 feet for 6 feet and 20 feet, you don't need a variance for the 4 feet, putting up a line of trees, maybe arborvitaes or something of the like?
Yeah, yes, and there are two issues I would comment to your line of thought. One, if I may.
Oh, sorry, I took you out of the spotlight in the bike. Hold your horses. Ready? What's going on is this is being recorded and there may be some other people in the
Got it,
community.
yep.
Thanks. Sorry to trouble you.
No worries.
Thanks.
This is a choke point right here. This is a stone retaining wall. So there's a difference in elevation from the house up to here. So this is a very narrow choke point. So there would be a concern about putting the trees in and maintaining it and having access. Also, there's an issue of how long will it take for these things to mature. I don't know that they would give the full coverage that a fence would. And the other issue, this is a relatively narrow lot. So I don't know how they would orient a house in there. I mean, I would suspect that it would be more, the axis would be more north-south. And I don't know, where a driveway would be, am I going to have headlights shining in my dining room window? I mean, these are all unknowns, but again, I can only anticipate at this point.
All right, while you're standing there in the spotlight,
Yes.
could you, for my benefit and anyone else who might be interested, point to where your windows are on your house?
Okay, so here we have a dining room window. Here we have a living room window. And here we have a family room window. And, they're large fixed windows with double hungs on each side in 3 locations.
All right, you can get out of the spotlight if you want, but someone may send you back into it.
That's okay.
You all right? Talk to me a little bit about the fence that you're asking this board to approve.
I mean, I would categorize it as a standard solid vinyl privacy fence. The only difference is whether it's going to be 6 or 4 feet.
All right, let me ask you this. I'm just asking. I'm not suggesting to anybody or you, but if this board were to grant you your request for a 6-foot fence for the 30 feet, which would give you 70 feet plus 30 feet, could you live with a 4-foot fence for the remaining 20 feet to the roadway?
That is what, that's what.
So you can, because that's what you proposed, and I should have figured that.
No, that's okay.
Yep, got it. Thanks.
Sure.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board?
I have a question. So you're saying, sir, that I just want to understand that you are unable to put in the arborvitae or whatever tree, right, as a privacy screen because there isn't sufficient room either for the tree to not crowd into adjacent property or home or to maintain it. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. How wide is that choke point there? I just can't tell from the resolution on the print. So just guesstimate. You've got
I'll say 10 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I just have a few more questions, Mr. Chairman, for the applicant. In terms of height, you talked a lot about the difference in height between your lot and the neighbor's lot. Does the neighbor's lot that is vacant and cleared now, does it continue to rise up the hill further?
It's, there's a grade. It's relatively flat, but there's a little bit of a grade. I don't think it's as pronounced as from my corner down to Morgan.
But it continues up to your neighbors who are here, correct? Okay, and coming in front of their property towards yours along Village Road, do you currently get headlights shining in your side windows that are facing towards Village Road?
Yes.
So the 6-foot fence would help block that, and the 4-foot fence would presumably block that, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
So have you thought about putting blinds or any kind of drapes on those windows?
We already have them.
Does that help with the lights?
Not during the middle of the day.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to state for your application or in support?
The only other thing I would just offer, I've talked to, maybe 3 fence providers, and there's no economies to be realized between a 4-foot and a 6-foot fence. They're about equal, just as an FYI.
In terms of cost?
Yeah.
And I guess in terms of the privacy issue, you're still, if you're standing outside of your property looking towards the adjacent lot, you're still going to be able to see that property, the home, right? Even if you put up a 6-foot fence because the elevation's higher, correct?
Correct, but it will be there's the view from within the house and the view from outside the house.
Okay.
So inside the house, you're going to have a different perspective than outside the house. Looking at those big picture windows.
The big picture windows will be looking at a vinyl fence as opposed to
Whatever it is now or whatever it will
a
be.
grade towards the vacant lot right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to be heard for or against this application? Does everyone come forward and state your name and address for the record?
Good evening. My name is Mike Coca. My wife Joanne. We live at 1970 Village Road. So we are his neighbors. So that empty lot is between us. So we support him having the fence. As Larry had stated, the topographic thing is lower. And also, if you put arborvitaes in there, the deer are going to love it because the bird sanctuary is behind us, and that used to be a nice pathway for the deer, snakes, chipmunks, and whatever. So we are totally supportive of the fence.
So you are on the other side of the vacant lot, correct?
Correct.
And do you currently have a fence
No.
along your property line?
No.
Do you have any?
We're
interest-
up a little. We're kind of a little bit higher.
And do you have any interest in installing a fence?
No.
Are there any other questions?
I just want to say you were very good at looking but not looking. I know you spotted me.
Neighborhood watch,
Yes, you're a good neighbor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anybody else in the audience that wishes to be heard for or against this application? Okay. Having heard none, is there anyone on the board that would like to make a motion for or against the application?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the variance as written. The benefit of providing the privacy that he seeks, I do not see as being achieved by other means feasible. Even though we did discuss the greenery being installed, that is not feasible for several reasons. It does not seem to be producing an undesirable change in the neighborhood. While the request is substantial just by nature of being a 2-foot difference from what is required in a side yard, it seems to make the most sense for this situation, particularly with the change in grade from the applicant's lot to the one uphill. It does not seem to be creating any adverse physical or environmental effects. And while it is self-created because he wants to install a fence, it's not determinative. So on the balance, I am voting yes.
A motion has been made. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that for the same reasons.
A motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Kenny, will you go? Is there any discussion on that motion? Ms. Shakedi, will you call the roll?
Mr. Lataif?
I understand the issue, the privacy and the new neighbors coming in. But again, I'm one of the people who don't like to set precedent for other neighbors, for other people come in. So I'm going to vote no because the applicant did say that it is feasible to put a 4-foot fence in there instead. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dolman?
This one was actually a pretty close call for me. I want to say that I do think that the benefit is achievable by other means, but that one is a close call. Just for your own information and for anyone else's, I'm a bit of a plant nerd. Green giant arborvitae grow 3 to 5 feet per year, up to 60 feet. So, and they're darn near bomb-proof except for deer. So thank you for pointing that out. So that was actually that helped me in my decision. I don't find that this would be an undesirable change in the neighborhood. Yes, 30 feet of 6-foot fence is absolutely consistently a substantial request for this board. There's no reason to believe there's an adverse environmental impact here. And also, this is a relatively unique situation in that the benefit that the applicant is looking to achieve is by a non-self-created issue. So on the balance, I will vote to approve.
Ms. Pacheco?
Yes.
Mr. Daly?
Yes, for all the reasons stated.
Mr. Green?
I want to, the answer is yes, but I want to know, the uniqueness of the situation here. First of all, the neighborhood in general that have been placed in the record also specifically with this lot. It's on the corner of Morgan and Village, but the placement of the residence is not square on the lot. It's, for lack of better words, tilted, as represented in the represented in the testimony we've heard in the plot plan in the record. Also, the fact that there's a pinch point militating against other things, as opposed to the installation of a fence, which will be harmonious with the other 70 feet of fence. And most importantly to me, the fact that your neighbors have showed up is the reason why I'm, for the reasons stated and for those additional reasons, going to say in this one instance, yes.
Thank you. If I may point out.
Actually,
Sir,
Oh,
we're
sorry.
voting now.
Sorry.
Mr. Antonikowski?
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Chairperson Hoag?
I was told as a lawyer, when things appear to be going your way, shut up. Best thing to do is to stay quiet. I agree with Mr. Lataif's concerns, and unfortunately, I would be a no vote. Not that that's determinative in this particular case, in this particular application. The reason that I would be a no vote is because we've consistently, and I know as the applicant, you don't come to zoning board meetings all the time, but we're consistently pretty strict in our interpretation of the code with respect to 6-foot fences. And I don't find that the basis or your basis for the request for the variance meets the criteria that we traditionally have, in the sense that your property and the needs that you have are not unique to any of the other applications that come before the board and are routinely denied. Most importantly, when looking at the criteria, I believe that the fact that you're putting a 6-foot fence at the location for the specific purpose of creating privacy between yourself and the neighbor is one of the reasons that the code exists as it does, to promote neighbors not putting up fences throughout Niskayuna, segregating their properties to segregate themselves from their neighbors. That's a preference that I think is expressed in the code. And as a result, I think that placing the 6-foot fence there does create an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood based upon the provisions of the code and the intent behind the code provision. As other individuals have indicated, I believe that the variance application is quite substantial. I don't believe that there's physical environmental effects, but based upon the fact that I would find that there is an undesirable change in the neighborhood and the request is substantial, coupled with the possibility of alternate methods to achieve your ends, although I know they're not necessarily ideal for the reasons stated. Balancing the factors, in my estimation, would indicate, or would result in me voting to deny your application. That being said, so I'm a no on the motion. That being said, your motion is approved by a vote of 5-2, so your variance is approved.
Thank you.
I believe that's the last matter, right? Everybody's looking at me like, did I miss something?
Need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Until we meet again.
The 20th of December.
Oh, it's gonna be a good one, I'm sure.